Hey guys, this is Arianne. Welcome back to the channel. We're actually here at a 181 unit apartment complex that we are under contract to buy with my trusted co-pilot and husband, Chris, here. I don't think it's your first time on the channel.
No,
You've been here once.
I have. I've
There you
at
go.
least cameoed once.
He's back, but he's always behind the camera. But anyway, we just wanted to talk through the process of buying a 181 unit apartment complex for those of you guys who are interested in knowing more about that. So we'll go over that really quickly here in the video, and then we'll dive deeper into more of the physical and financial inspection steps, since that's what we're here to do right now. We actually just finished walking all of the interior of the unit, so we'll dive deeper into that. So anyway, let's start off with how we found the deal.
Yeah, so what starts first, right, is you're looking at hundreds of deals to find a few that work, to submit several LOIs, which is a letter of intent. It's kind of like, hey, this is what I'm proposing. Do you agree? If we do, we'll work on the contract, which is like another 2-week process. But we're on the same page, right? Once we both sign that, we're officially under LOI, and then we can start the next steps. But just the point here is that you're going to look at a lot of deals. Most of them are not going to work until you find a few that will work for your model.
Right, and it's so don't be discouraged if you've submitted your 20th offer, 50th offer, whether you're buying an apartment complex or a single family home. It takes a lot of offers, especially if it's your first one, and even if it's your 2000th one like ours, it still takes like 50 offers or so before we actually get a good deal. And that's why sometimes people think real estate is too hard, right? Or real estate is risky, but it's not risky if you run your numbers and you stick to your specific metrics, right? Like if you want, let's say, a 10% cash on cash return with a 50% expense ratio, because that's what you think is good for your market, and if it takes 50 offers to get the price that gets you that return, that's okay.
It's better than buying a bad deal just to you can't eraser math. Like, your numbers are your numbers. Stick to your numbers and you're going to know what you're going to buy. We actually have a lot of control because we get to determine the parameters that we buy it.
Right, so that's the step that takes the longest time is getting that first LOI. After you get the LOI signed, in the large multifamily space, we actually go to a purchase and sale agreement after that. So the LOI gets sent to our attorney. He drafts the contract or the purchase and sale agreement. And then there's usually a week to 2 weeks where our attorney and the seller's attorney just goes back and forth negotiating every line item in that contract so that both parties feel like there's enough wiggle room for both sides. So it's not like too pro buyer or too pro seller.
Right. We're at the end of the day, we're looking for a fair contract where both sides are supported. So we know what we're walking into, we know what the conditions are, and how we get from there all the way to closing with no surprises.
Right, and then after the contract, this is what comes next. We set up a day or two to walk all the interior and the exterior of the units. That's called physical and financial due diligence for us. So in the physical inspections, we actually hire a construction company, and then usually we'll bring out a property management company or two to interview while we're walking the properties. So all of us go inside all the units. Our construction company actually takes a very detailed set of pictures that we help them come up with, so that we have pictures of every fridge and every flooring and every cabinet and all the mechanicals, so that we can take that internally to our team and just check off and make sure that we're budgeting for all the things we need to repair and update, so that once we close, we are pretty much starting right out the gate.
Right. I want to note here that what they're looking for in every unit will vary from person to person. So everybody's looking for different things and what you want to do with the property, right? So a property with white appliances might not be bad if that's what you're going for in your market. If we're looking for black appliances, that's why we take pictures of everything. So once we take it back to our office, we can look through and account for, these ones are white. We have 16 white refrigerators that we'll have to replace. And that's the physical due diligence, is making sure that we know exactly what we're buying.
Right, and then we also hire a plumber to scope the sewer lines to make sure they're not collapsed or anything. We're not surprised with a pretty big plumber bill after we close. We want to know that before we close. Our construction company also gets a drone and inspects all the roofs. They get on top of the roofs and make sure those are good. For this particular property, we will actually have to replace the roof.
But we know, like the point of physical due diligence is that we know that we're going to have to replace the roofs, and we make sure that's in our budget so that, again, day one, we start the process.
And then alongside physical due diligence, we also do financial due diligence, which is getting all of the financial reports from the existing seller and property management company. So we actually got all of those today, or at least most of the ones we need for sure. And we comb through all of those financials and make sure that nothing looks weird and there's nothing shady going on, right? Like rents that don't actually get deposited in a bank account. Sometimes that happens.
And differences, right? So we're looking at all of the leases and making sure that the rent on the lease is the same as the rent on the rent roll that the seller provided us, is the same as the money that landed in the bank account, because those all have to match. Or the security deposit. That's actually a big one. A lot of times a tenant will say, well, I had $1,000 security deposit. Their lease says $500 and the property manager has $500. So this is how much your security deposit is. We're not going to give you $1,000 when you leave because it was $500. So we're just making sure that all of those things line up. Everything is the same as we expect. Again, our goal here is to make sure we know exactly what we're buying so that we know how to plan for it and we know how to prepare for it.
Right. And then, so after we do all of this, all the physical due diligence and financial due diligence, the next step is getting the financing, right? So we've actually been working on the financing for the last few weeks already, but that's the next major step, is making sure that we're getting the best financing terms and we're selecting the best lender for the specific property. And then, as you guys know, if you've ever bought a house or refinanced a property, there's just a lot of documents. So I won't bore you with the details of that, but they ask for a lot of documents and we got to give them a lot of documents. Not just
what's the blood of your firstborn? Can I get that in a little slide for me?
And it's not just from us. They actually ask for a lot from the seller and the property manager as well. So there's a lot of back and forth between now and closing. They have to do an appraisal and do a lot of other third-party reports, so that all gets scheduled. And then what comes after that?
Yep. So we're done with physical due diligence. We're done with financial due diligence. We're working on closing the financing, correct? So at this point, once we've submitted all of our documents to the lender, and the seller has submitted all of their documents to the lender, at that point, we're literally just waiting to close, right? So as long as all of the documents line up, like we have a personal financial statement that says we have enough money, enough liquidity, enough net worth, and enough experience to buy this particular type of property, we check off on the buyer side. Seller has checked off all, they have title, all the title work, everything like that, all the boxes are checked. We sign. We
Right.
sign at closing. Property's officially ours, deeds get recorded, and we're good to go. So now, day one, we own the property. Time to transition, right? We have their property managers who have been collecting rent. All the tenants know how to pay their rent with their property managers, and we have our new property managers. That's why we interview the property managers on the day of due diligence. So that's why we had property managers here, so they know what we're trying to do, and they have a plan day one for that transition. So tenants all get notices. Hey, these are your new owners. This is how you pay rent now. This is the new system. If we're taking online payments, this is how you create your new account. And our property manager does that transition. They are transitioning all the tenants so that now we're getting the checks, and all of the people forget about all the contracts and all the services, all those service providers. Your water deposit, we have to make sure that we now have a water deposit that was the water company and the power company and the cable company, and all of that the chaos that comes from one owner to a new owner. That's what's happening next. We're transitioning the property from them to us.
Right. And that is the beginning of the business plan. We won't go over too much on this video. We've already went over a lot, but we might do so on another video later on. So if you wanna watch what the business plan is going to be and how that's gonna go, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can watch the next video when it comes out. Click that little bell button too, so that you're the first one to know when we post that new video. So all right guys, thanks for checking this out. Hopefully you got a nice view of the property, and we'll see you next time.